Good morning, traders and friends, family, them, they, chew people. How's everyone doing this morning? I hope you can see my screen okay and hear me. So I'm not talking to myself.
Doing well and looking good and hear you loud and clear.
Well, Mr. Kyle, that was a nice overview this morning, as usual. So we had quite the day yesterday, right? Lots of things to cover. Let's start out with this ES. All right, let me get my drawing tools. You know me, I like to draw. Before I do start, I just want to mention real quick. Before I forget anyway, today I'm doing the Wealth 365 uh, webinar at 5 o'clock. If you want to join us, we're giving away a couple prizes, a couple free months in the room, and also couple 1 hour sessions of mentoring if you want to mentor with me. But sign up. You could just sign up on Twitter, the link, or we'll put the link in the room here for you. And it should be fun. I'm going to review some of these markets this week because we had such a crazy week and go over how we look at them. So moving forward here. All right, you see this uh, one thing I have to say about these markets, when you have a big gap, right? Hang on a second. Let me, when you have these large gaps, there's greater odds of continuation in a trend, right? Because large gaps, there's just so much, it creates a vacuum, a trap, where um, there's a good chance you're not going to come back and fill it that day. Now you can see the gap that we had here, right? Let's just it's a pretty big gap, right? We opened up, uh, and we had a bigger gap on the opening because we opened down here, right? Went up, filled the gap a little bit, but couldn't completely fill it. And then, of course, you could see on this 30-minute chart when I expanded this profile out from the US session, 30-minute chart, we pretty much single time framed in a sense that we had lower highs in a 30-minute until we had a test of this area, which yesterday that was support. It was a big area, this 30 to 31. And I think we got down 31.75. All right. So meanwhile, when we did this price overlap, which is pretty normal, when you see this type of formation, uh, it's a B formation, which a B formation usually represents, and you see this bell-shaped curve here, represents a long liquidation right off the opening. Now, the market is in an area where it's very possible that you could see continuation. If we take out yesterday's low, there's a good chance we're going to get down to the daily EMA, which comes in at 55.98. Okay. If you look at it on a regular bar chart, right? There's different ways to look at it. You can see we've been in a nice uptrend and we haven't really backed off, and whether you use the Keltners here or use the moving averages that I use, the combination, it doesn't matter. It just depends on your preference. But right here, you could see we're not far from the daily EMA, but we're still holding up. Now, when you look at these big picture kind of trends, it keeps your focus on the fact that we're still in a nice uptrend. We're just stone's throw, actually, from all-time highs. All right. And later on, I'm going to get into it tonight about, we'll look at it, some yearly charts and weekly charts, what whatnot. But this is a nice trend. We barely gave anything back. These aren't down bars. These are the PAV reversals. And you can just say we barely, all we did is basically have like some kind of bull flags where we came back, held the trend, and continued. So keep that in mind. Don't, I know like most of my trader friends, prefer being short than long. And of course, if you have that bias in the last 2 years, you probably didn't do very well. It's very hard to, you don't want to fight the trend. You have to be pretty uh, open and to both sides. Okay. Now, with that being said, we're doing a little price overlap inside the U.S. session. After a huge day like this, it's pretty common for us to kind of try to balance and get our feet on the ground, and the market will have to regroup. And if the market regroups and takes out the U.S. session highs here, then we might make a beeline to fill the gap, right? And the gap is right around that 72 to 56.90-ish. So meanwhile, my pivot comes in at this 56. It's the top of the value area, turns out now, of Europe. And it's also the high of Asia. So, and if you look here, it's pretty much right around the low of this big structure when we sold off the prior night in Europe. So it's a pretty good level, and it's right where these kind of undeveloped areas from the U.S. session come in. Now, we did get up there. We kind of moved into those single prints, but didn't, or, kind of undeveloped light volume areas. And, but we still have a tail above. I would almost have to say in the morning, there should be two-way trading as market will try to come into balance. Now, the just, real quick, let me get organized here for a second. I need more coffee. The NAS started the sell-off, as you could see, from the CPI day. We left that tail all-time highs. When we fell apart, we never recovered like the ES did take out their CPI high. But the NAS pretty much did this like little bear flag and then fell apart. And the NAS being such a strong weighted, the 5, 6, huge stocks from the NAS that are in the S&Ps represent really like 23% of the entire ES weighted index, and that's why they kind of dragged us in the mud. All right, let's move on here. Okay. Let me see. Now let's take a look at this. Start with the crude. The crude, for the most part, looks good. I mean, but it's up against some good resistance now. Trying to get organized here, right? Okay, so here's the crude, but you could see this structure up here, right around the swing high, is where the market stopped before, and now we're falling short again in the crude, which, by the way, some have switched to sub crude, and I'm still in August just because of the it's better for me for the structure to look at the past in this particular moment. But tomorrow I'm going to roll to sub. Okay, so we've got this overnight session, went up, made a high, took out these previous highs that we had from last week. And it was last week's high that we just tested, and then came back down. This could be a little bit of a trap because when you have this kind of move to the upside, and here we are, we can't even test the previous U.S. session highs. they could come back down to the pivot. Now the pivot is where the previous value area is for one. Okay. I'm just going to do this quickly. So we could come back down there, and I felt this area of 82.15, basically the pivot that I feel where the market's going to continue to push down. If they get below there, then we've got this undeveloped single prints, kind of a cave-ish thing where you can come even farther down. I don't think we're going to get even that. We might not even get down to the pivot. The market's pretty strong. Let's just let the market tell us in the morning what we want to do. If we get above the previous real session highs, we might try to come back and test the overnight highs. Big picture, the market bounced off overhead resistance. We've got some from this high here to the swing highs. There's a lot of congestion up here, so and no shock that we backed off. All right, so in the morning, a little two-way trading, try to between the pivot and the previous US session high will probably be what we're going to see. Okay. All right, let's go here to the gold. Now the gold did a perfect cave fill yesterday. We drew this in early, and here's the cave fill, right? Now, just so that you can see this a little closer, I'm going to open this up. And what we're going to do is just expand this out into a 30-minute bar chart so that you can see what happened. We opened up here, took out the previous overnight highs. And then when we got below the previous overnight lows right around here, you can see we had quite the continuation, and we went right to the bottom of the single prints, and we held. It was a pretty classic cave fill. If you're to look cave fill up in the trading dictionary, they'd have a picture of this, right? Okay, so with that being said, most of these markets may be trading a little bit inside the previous US session structure, highs and lows. Pivot comes in at 24.74. I kind of feel that's a pretty decent area. We've got previous US session high there, the top of the overnight value area, where the market broke this support and had outside, we traded outside the first hour and a half on this particular breakout once we broke down, and that was the point of control also right here from the overnight market and this little ledge that we had. So quite the sell-off. So I think this will be pivotal. 24.74 to 75 is really the pivot, and good chance we're going to test the overnight lows because we had such a spring. Gold was on a tear to the upside. It only had one inside U.S. session day from the lows of July 9th. So, a little bit of a push down is probably in the picture this morning. We'll see if we can pull a couple dollars out of that, right? All right, so we did the crude, and let's do the EC. EC now, doing a cave fill from the overnight session. You can see these single prints. They had some happy feet overnight, but I mean the previous overnight session took out the highs from yesterday from the previous overnight session, but we didn't fill this cave, right? And we have this gap currently that we're working our way into. You can see it right here. So this brown area that I highlight is the gap, as you all know. And I think it's very possible we get down to 109.38, just like the gold. The EC and the gold are, most of the time are pretty correlated these days. We had a huge run up from same thing down here from the ninth. Nice, nice run up. In fact, we had to run up here just a little bit of a, kind of a reset bull flag, and here we go again. So, the only issue is, we're probably going to have to come back, at least fill this first gap. And I think you could see we're on our way. So let's see if we get a cave fill and come back to this previous US session high. All right. Call me crazy. All right, let's finally finish up here with the bonds. We'll take a quick look at the bonds. All right. So this shaded blue area was this overhead resistance that we had from last month, and it's a pretty big area. Now we originally ate into it already, but there's still some good resistance above, and I think this is a area that if we get above, we'll go and we'll continue this rally. But the pivot for me is 120.11. It's right around the overnight highs. It's the point of control, which is where we traded the most yesterday. And the top of this kind of value area, this is just a little test reject. This particular high comes in right around that 120.12. So 120.12, basically, we get above it. That would be making a little statement that we're not going to back off. I'm in the camp, like the EC and the gold, that we're going to first push down. In fact, we're testing the previous US session lows. So there's a good chance that we get on the other side of 119.27, and we have room to come into this valley and maybe make it down to the high volume node of 119.12. Now, today, can we do it? I don't know, but I do feel we're going to do a little testing into here. All right, let's get ready for the opening, right? And rock and roll a little bit.